Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Slumber Party. I am your host, Amanda Jewson, and we are going to be talking about the thing that you guys are going to be really mad at me about. And you're going to be like, Amanda, I hate this podcast. You might not even be listening, and that's fine. You might have just skipped over this one because I'm going to be telling things you don't want to hear today. And let me tell you, I feel the pain too. Okay, we're in this together. Today, I have expert Elizabeth Milovidov. I said your name wrong. We're going to have to do it again. Now there's too much stress. Milovidov. There we go.
That's it.
I did it. I need to pronounce names correctly. It's important to me. It's a former teacher. She's an internationally known digital parenting coach, author, lawyer, and law professor. She's a founder of digitalparentingcoach.com and provides information and support to caregivers, parents who are looking for best practices when it comes to social media, internet laws, and the internet at large. Elizabeth's publications include The Parent's Guide to Parenting in the Digital Age, The Parent's Guide to YouTube and YouTube Kids, and The Parent's Guide to Digital Detox and Disconnect. Elizabeth, I am so excited to have you because for me, this is something that I shout to the rooftops, and now we have an expert to talk about it in a way better way than just some, sleep coach can. So thank you for coming today.
No problem. It's absolutely my pleasure. This is like my favorite topic of all time. Just talking about
Yes.
just digital wellness and what families can do because it's so, so important. And I just think that, I do hope that your listeners are going to tune in, that they're not going to be freaked out and think that we're going to say anything too scary because we're not. We're going to scare them a little bit, but we'll give them some strategies.
And you know what? I find that when I'm talking to my clients and we're talking, especially my toddler preschoolers, who this is sort of how my TV trajectory went. So you were kind of asking me a little bit about this before we jumped in. I was like, no, let's save it. So
Right.
you have a baby and you're like, my child will never watch TV. They will never. And you're like, yeah, that's what I'll do. And then it becomes, I had this epiphany. So my child was like 3 months old. This is my first baby. And I was on the floor and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what to do with myself. And this baby is here. And like, I personally was bored. Like she didn't need TV, but I was like, I can't turn on the TV because if her eyes even look at the screen, there will be so much brain damage. And now, oh my God, it'll be so bad. So then I like had a minor breakdown and I called my friend Sarah and I was like, what do I do? And she's like, okay, first of all, get off the floor. You don't have to be on the floor with your baby all the time. The second thing is you're going to put on Ellen. And like Ellen, 6 years ago could do no wrong. She's in a lot wrong these days if you're reading anything.
Yeah, I am reading. Yeah.
It's not great. But at the time I watched Ellen and it saved me. But so then, my child would never watch TV, but it would be in the periphery. And then you have a second baby and you're
Mhm.
like, okay, TV is this amazing thing that you will always get because I need to do something with your sister or I need to do X, Y, Z. And so that's how my TV trajectory happened, where it went from never to I need to do something. So we're going to watch a show. I solo parent a lot because my husband travels. So my daughters would watch a show in the morning while I got ready. It's sort of like is a stopgap so I can do other things.
Yep.
But I'm a former teacher. And so I have, in addition to like being a parent, I have all of the research on how devices are affecting children. And it does
Mhm.
scare me. And now as a sleep expert, we know that blue light from screens is impacting sleep. So there's so many layers. And I would love for you to talk to our listeners who probably have guilt, anxiety, or fear about all of these things.
Right.
And you are the person that's going to lead us into the light.
Dun, da, 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 here we go. Let me get my
No
cape and my
pressure.
boots.
Yeah,
No
exactly.
pressure whatsoever.
Exactly.
But first, just so that you know, you're not alone because your journey sounds an awful lot like my own, and my
Oh,
own
good.
boys are 10 and 13 now, and they're okay. And I also have to
Okay,
say,
good.
full disclaimer, I watched a heck of a lot of television myself when I was a little kid. I'm okay. I
Same.
went to law
Yeah,
school, I got a PhD. Things kind of balance out, right? But
you're
I think
okay.
that's really, yeah, I'm okay. But that's really the optimal word is balance. And I think that's what parents need to know. And I think that for the new mommies who have the young babies, of course we were always freaking out. We didn't know what to do. Should the baby sleep on his tummy, on his side?
Mhm,
We're just kind of freaking
mhm.
out about everything. And I
Everything.
just really want all of your people to understand that if you're taking care of yourself, and that means having that Ellen moment, so that way you can get calm in your head, you're better, you feel better, baby feels better,
Yeah,
they get that.
yeah,
Now, if we're going to start talking about some of the hardcore stuff, right,
yeah.
which is first, let's just talk about what all of these devices in general are doing, okay? Because I know that toddlers are on tablets and on smartphones, and they're playing games, and they're, speaking with grandma or an uncle or an aunt, etc. And I'm going to say that's okay. Keep it in control. Think
Mhm,
about balance. A few
mhm.
years ago, the American Pediatric Association, they'd come out before and they said children under 2, zero screens, right?
This
Zero
was
screens. And
my
that
yeah, this was my,
exactly.
yeah, and then
Yeah, this
so
was your
I was
time,
worried
and they
about the
changed
Ellen.
it.
Yeah. Oh, thank
Yeah,
God.
they changed it. And the reason why they changed it is because they realized that it wasn't practical, and that
Mhm.
people really need to, find ways to live in this digital age. And right now, with the pandemic, my goodness, we're even more concerned with our devices. So, with
Can I
pandemic,
interrupt you for 5
yeah,
seconds?
sure,
Because I have
sure.
to just know your opinion on one thing. Did
Yes.
you watch Glennon Doyle's video about parenting in the pandemic? This is how I found her. If you haven't, go look
Oh,
it
I
up, and
do
this is
know
for
who she
everyone.
is. Yeah, yes.
She did this, Instagram story where she said, "A friend called me up and he asked me, I'm losing it, and he's so mad that I'm on the phone right now because it's not TV time." And I said, "It is a pandemic. All day is TV time. You wake up, you do like, it's actually a way better video than I'm get it was so
It's
perfect, and I was like, "This is a permission we all need right now."
Yes, but I think that that's it. We have to give ourselves permission,
Yeah.
and that's exactly right. I think that parents have to do whatever they can right now just to kind of survive. We're no longer talking about thriving in the digital age. I love all those buzzwords. I'll teach you how to survive and thrive in the digital age. No, right now this is survival mode, and
Yes.
it's okay. It really is okay. And I know that because I'm in Paris, France, and when we were in hardcore lockdown, my boys
Mhm.
had way too much screen time, online time,
Mhm.
etc. And they're back off now. We've eased out and they're back off now. I
Mhm.
mean, do what you have to do, digital parents, but realize that it's all about balance. It's like anything, like eating too much chocolate, drinking too much
Yeah.
wine, right? You
Yeah.
may overdo it, but get back on track. And
Yeah.
so I do think that it's really important that parents, especially young parents, that they get rid of all that guilt, they get rid of the anxiety. I love what you said earlier about doing the research. And that is like already for me, whoop, right there. That's the basis. And
Mhm.
if you
Mhm.
can't do the research, then it's about having a community like yours where you're talking with other parents to find out, what are you doing? What are the best practices? What have you seen? Because I
Mhm.
think that if more parents are talking to each other and communicating about the things that they've noticed with their own children, that is really going to help.
Yeah.
And so I know that you want me to talk a little bit about like some device stuff, don't you? You mentioned
Well,
blue
yeah.
light.
Oh, yeah, I wanna know about that specifically because a common thing that I hear, so parents do it on their own, and so, like, we can talk to adult stuff, but a lot of my parents will say, "I'm reluctant to take away the tablet before bed because that's a calming activity for them." They seem calm when they're on it. They chill out. My research, I'm sure your research
Yep.
says differently.
Exactly. And I think that is like really key. They have to understand that the blue light is just it's stimulating the brain. So maybe they're sitting there all quiet, etc., but it's stimulating them, and it's going to prevent the release of melatonin, which is going to help them sleep. And so I really think that parents might want to find another ritual with their children at nighttime, even if it's again, go back to those basics. Let's go old school and read a
Mhm.
book. And if you have to read your Kindle because that's where the story is, has or your e-reader, that's fine, but don't let them see the screen. Read to
Mhm.
them, let them see your face, your mouth, all of the expressions that go with it.
Yeah.
But I think that the digital has just become so convenient, right? And I really
Mhm.
want to again stress, don't let the convenience take over some of our common sense. I mean, I have seen so many things, you're going to be amazed, things like connected diapers, connected
What?
pacifiers. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Connected pacifiers that have like temperature, and they can like tell. Yeah, there is so much out there. The connected diapers will let you know how what the hydration is like in the diaper, if it's too wet, if it's
Oh my
if it's
God.
dry. And you get all
Ugh.
this information on an app. And I'm like, come on, parents. I can understand in some circumstances, especially like some of the medical circumstances where they have a
Yeah.
onesie that is a connected onesie to make sure that the child is sleeping
Yeah.
correctly. We get it, but it's like we've let convenience and technology take over so much, and we're not even thinking about some of the risk, right? Like the Wi-Fi, like the radiation, like radio waves. I just think that even with something as simple as a baby monitor that we
Mhm.
all love and
Mhm.
enjoy,
Mhm.
do the research, as you said. I think
Mhm.
that was like, I think
Mhm.
that's all I'm going to say the entire time that we speak is research. Do the
Yeah.
research,
Yeah.
because if they
Yeah.
did the research on the baby monitors, they would be looking at things like what's the frequency, finding a lower frequency, what are the
Right.
safe levels, making
Right.
sure not to place it next to the baby, because these are
Right.
all things that while you might think that white noise is helpful, etc., in the end
Mhm.
it may not be as helpful as we think. So I mean, for me, I think in general, just education, doing the
Yeah.
research, and if you can't do that,
Yeah.
ask the questions.
Well, and I often recommend white noise with my clients, but they're often
Yeah.
surprised to hear that it's a lot lower than what they've been told.
Yes.
So white
Right.
noise can be a fan. White noise, and actually there's I think it's called the MPAC. I'll have to double check, but there is a
Mm.
specific white noise machine that is actually a machine. It's not it's not something like it's like a fan inside, and so the
Right.
fan
Right.
makes the noise, and so you're not dealing with the electronics. But for so long, I think just right before I had my child, it was like loud white noise. Well,
Yeah.
now there is
Please.
some evidence to suggest that loud white noise is impacting children's hearing. So we need to keep it,
Right.
actually, I suggest anywhere between 40 and 50 decibels. Download a decibel reader. Um,
Right.
yeah, and then you obviously need to think about, what when I hear about all of these connected devices. It's not that I'm not worried about frequencies and whatever. My actual main concern is the amount of anxiety that gives a parent. So in my line of work, I'm dealing with moms at their most tired. I should say
Yeah.
parents, but it's quite often I'm communicating with moms.
Right.
But all parents have a certain level of anxiety about their child. And then we have these devices that are so hyper connected to our child that we know their oxygen levels, their heart rate levels, and it's, unless there is, in my personal opinion, and I think of most doctors I've spoken to, unless you have been medically advised to monitor these vitals, there is no,
Right.
unless, and even so, if you're an educated doctor or nurse and you have that information, you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do with that? So I had a client ask me, I noticed that, when they were upset today, when they were protesting, their heart rate was high. And then after it was low. And I was like, well, that tracks. That tracks for me. They were
Yeah,
upset.
yeah.
But it's like, what do you think? It's like, I'm not trained to give that information about what that means. And I think that unless you're going to do something with it, like give it to a doctor, communicate with a healthcare practitioner, then
Right.
you need to, we don't need to know everything that we need to know. And I think we know too much, and that
Mhm.
includes, like, I had a monitor company reach out. So my girls did have a monitor in their room, but it was like on the other side of the room,
Right, right,
and
right, right.
it was away from them. But a video monitor. But there are these video monitors these days that, like, snap shot every possible movement, breath, whatever. And then I had this company reach out and be like, "We'd love for you to be a spokesperson." And I was like, "I won't, because in my line of work, this is creating anxiety for parents." So I
Yes,
have
yes.
to answer to things that are completely normal. Like, I noted my monitor picked up that my child moved a total of 15 times. Is that normal? It's like, yeah, and God forbid we put a camera on you overnight as a grown
Right.
up and we see all of the things that you see. And like, if we want to, I'm sorry, I'm going on a tangent right now, but if we want to even think about what this looks like for grown-ups, our Apple Watches.
Right.
Since an Apple Watch and these Fitbits have started tracking our heart rates, there's been an increase of people going to their doctor about their heart rate stuff. It's like we have all of this information that it's like we're getting to a point where, like, if you're going to test and test and test and test and test and test and look for something, you're probably going to find something totally benign that
Right.
you're going to have to investigate that will give you a ton of anxiety. And I don't know why we have all these things. It makes me crazy.
Yeah, I can
Sorry.
tell.
Sorry. But my job is helping calm a parent about what is
Right.
normal.
N
Here's what the
Yes.
research says, blah blah blah, and then I have to contend with these whole like a whole slew of anxiety producing devices,
Right.
and I'm
It's
like,
the because it's the marketing. It's the marketing. They know
yeah,
that young parents, or not young parents, but parents with newborns and young children are anxious. I mean, it's normal. It's the name of the game. My boys are 10 and 13. It doesn't go away, people. You're still anxious, but it's just you have to learn how to deal with it. And it's true, these devices, they don't always help. So, for example, I too had baby monitors,
mhm,
but mine were the type where if they moved, it would pick up. So
right,
that's of course fine. And I would say
yeah,
always just do the research. You can figure out
yeah,
what's going to work. I'm not saying no baby
yeah,
monitors at all. I'm saying just
yeah,
don't place it like right on their foreheads or with the fan
yeah,
or the loud music, the white noise right at their
in
hearing,
their ear,
etc.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's like do the research. But it's so true that when you sit there and think about these things, these devices, they do produce, they create anxiety. Think about your
mhm,
own smartphone, right?
mhm,
All the cute little notifications that come up and beeps like, oh, who was that? Oh, do I need to return that call? I mean, this is the
mhm,
same thing if you're getting notifications. Oh, the baby moved. Oh, the baby made a noise. Oh, the diaper is a little bit wet. I mean, it just is anxiety producing. And I think
mhm,
that we don't need all of that. Just like on our smartphones, how we can turn our phones to grayscale, which no one does, so that way you don't have to see all of the swirling colors. I mean,
mhm,
there are ways to reduce the effects of technology because I'm the first
mhm.
person who will say I love technology, love social media, love internet. I think that it is just so cool. I was like a Trekkie before Trekkies even became Trekkies. I think all that stuff is cool. Star Wars, you name it, I'm like
Yeah,
all over it. But I also think that there are tiny risks out there. And
yeah,
we have to think about that. And as a lawyer, I should say, one of the things that we didn't even touch upon is data protection and
mm,
privacy, all of this data
mhm,
that you're giving. And let's just talk
yes,
about baby cams, right? So the monitors.
mhm,
Where is it going? Where are these live streams going? A few years ago, you guys can all go Google it. A few years ago, just type in hacking baby monitors, and you will see
heard
they were
about
like
this.
live streaming on cribs, right?
It's
I mean, there's
crazy.
stuff like this. Yeah, of course. But I mean, it's just because it's a thing to do. It's not like I mean, bad
Mhm.
actors are going to be bad actors, right? So, I
Yeah,
mean, it's like, think about the data that you are putting out there. And I'm talking about from everything. I'm talking about from the ultrasounds that you post on social media to say, we're
yeah,
pregnant, that
yeah,
accidentally leave the hospital name and your name, etc. My
yeah,
own son, my 13-year-old, his profile is the exact same of him today, right? So it's just like I would
mhm,
have never posted it. But
yeah,
to think about these things and to realize that you are the digital guardian,
mhm,
and just because we have a phone and the baby's so cute in nursing and you want to take pictures and post them to everyone, just to kind of step back and realize that they have their own little digital identities too. They have their own little digital rights,
totally.
and you can
Yeah,
share this information. You can share information
yeah,
about them. Of course, you can, but
yeah.
just think about their privacy.
Yeah, and I try to be careful it slips out for sure. I try to be careful about on my social media not using their first names in print,
Right.
for reasons. I
Yeah.
don't want
Yes.
someone
Yes.
to recognize my children and use their name. I
Right.
know that sounds crazy, but these are the things in my
No,
brain.
yeah,
Um,
it's not crazy at
well,
all. It's called
even
digital guardianship.
yeah, and what I think about all the time is, are you familiar with Emily Oster? I talk about her book like every other episode, but there's
Oh,
a
this
book
sounds
called Crib Sheet, and she
oh,
talks
okay.
about every possible controversial parenting decision. So breastfeeding, bottle feeding,
Mm,
sleep training or
mm,
not, blah, blah, blah. And in her sleep training chapter, she talked about, and it was just a throwaway comment, but it's kind of always stuck with me, that due to baby sleep tracking apps, and I'm not saying you don't use
mm.
this, but I'm saying
Right.
like think about this, that we have an insane amount of evidence about when babies wake and fall asleep on average, when their best times to wake and fall asleep are. And I
Mm.
was like, interesting, because we use that for our help, but that data goes somewhere and it's being sold, and it's like doesn't have your name and your address
Exactly.
on it. But it's important to know that whatever you put into the internet, there's a reason why it's asking for it, and we need to be
Right.
thinking carefully. Now, you said something that I want to hit on, and it was, I'm gonna butcher it. I want to say it was New York Times about 2 years ago published this article about screens and kids, and you had talked
Mm.
about all of the notifications, and I'm thinking about like dopamine and how. So in our house, and this is a personal rule, this is not a judgment. I think you can totally do this with balance, but we don't play video games. We don't play games
Mhm.
yet,
Mhm. Mhm.
until I can reason with my kids. I'm not against
Right.
it, but I have tried games, by the way. My
Yeah.
kids turn into raging monsters when you take them
As do
away.
most of them. As do
Yeah,
most of them.
and I
Yeah.
just don't wanna deal with it, so maybe it's lazy.
Right.
It's not judgment, but I've also
Yeah.
seen kids been like, "Okay, I don't need to play this game anymore." But for my kids, I would love if you can speak to it, like how these notifications and how these games are designed to trigger like an addictive
Yes.
response. And that,
Yes.
like that article in the New York Times, I'll try to link it in the show notes after this.
Mm.
That was my that was like as I was leaving teaching, we were all getting this information because, as teachers, we're like, iPads for everyone. Everyone plays the
Right.
game. And then it was like, whoa, 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 maybe hold on, we might need to dial that back.
Right,
So,
right, right.
can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, sure, sure, sure. So I'm just going to back up just a tiny bit because you were talking about all the data that's out there and about
Yeah,
parents putting things out and
yeah,
filling out forms and etc. I mean, just take that simple test. If you're on your iPhone, your smartphone, and iPhone or Android, whatever, you're on your smartphone and you start looking at a baby crib, right? And then all of a sudden on Facebook, Instagram, you
yeah,
start seeing ads for baby cribs. Come on,
yeah,
people. That's what I'm saying. So think about where this is coming from, right? And so it's the same thing when you're, doing innocent searches or when you're uploading information about your children. Although it may not be specific to your children, it will help marketing and advertisers.
yeah,
And so my
yeah,
general rule is that if it's free, you're the product, right? It's just that
yes,
simple. And just,
yeah,
keep it in mind and, also tell your children that because there are a lot of fabulous apps for children that are free.
oh,
And there's
yes,
a reason
yes.
why. And
Mhm.
but if we go back to talking about this whole screen dilemma, and I am going to call it a dilemma because there has been a huge amount of controversy. In the New York Times and the Atlantic, there have been academics who've gone back and forth. Just all
Yeah,
out fighting about the
yeah,
methodologies, about how they discovered these things. And what I will say is this, that screen balance is really essential, that people have
yeah,
to realize, even when we talk about screen time, that might not even be the appropriate word. I don't know
mhm.
what the word is, but for example, if my 13-year-old is studying Latin for 2 hours on an iPad, is that the same effect of him playing
Yeah,
Fortnite for two
yeah,
hours? So
yeah,
when we
yeah,
say screen time, there's a big difference. And so for
absolutely.
me, and in fact, you also used a word that I don't use, which is addiction. And that is
Okay,
because addiction is a medical term. And we
yeah,
know that the World Health Organization, they came out with gaming disorder and addiction. I
okay.
believe this was, I can't even remember what year, a year or two ago. And
Oh,
everyone
interesting.
started freaking out saying, oh my
Right,
gosh, gaming disorder addiction.
yeah,
But Amanda, it was like 12 months of
yeah,
gaming disorder before it became addiction. And then
of
people would say, oh,
course.
my child doesn't get off when they're playing Roblox, they don't get off immediately, they're addicted. And it's like, they're not addicted. They're
Let's
just
be
not listening to
careful
you.
about yeah,
They're
exactly.
just not listening to you.
Yeah,
And this is called self regulation, which
yeah.
little
Mhm.
kids have trouble doing, right? Even adults. So it's just like bring it back. But if I were to say, the best way to really just kind of handle this whole screen debate is first to look at what they're doing online. What are they playing? You had mentioned earlier that your children watch like movies with you or
Mhm,
like
mhm,
a series. I mean,
mhm.
this is something completely different than mindless streaming on YouTube or
Yeah,
on Netflix. So, for all the people who have Netflix and streaming, put the parental controls on them and
yeah.
turn off that suggested episode, next episode, next episode. You can turn that off on everything. And this
Mhm.
is again back to that research, right? Get in there and dig around and
Yeah,
say, okay, what can I do to limit? And I mean, I don't say, forbid, I'm just saying keep it reasonable. But anyway, so
totally.
5 really important things if you're thinking about my child is addicted is are they sleeping well? Right? So that's
Mhm.
already the first one. Are they sleeping well? Are they eating well? Are they doing well in school? Are they interacting, nursery school, et cetera? Are they doing well? Are they keeping up with friends and family? Are they engaging in conversation? And lastly, you've already alluded to this, but how are they interacting with their devices? If they
Mhm.
are throwing tantrums and they're getting aggressive, I do have a case. I'm not going to call out my child, but I do have a case where one of my children called me a name because I actually we were playing Fortnite and I lost.
Yeah,
I got shot up and I didn't like give
yeah,
him, revive him in time. He didn't call me a bad word, but he was not happy. And I just said, okay, we're done. You have
yeah,
shown that we are done with this.
yeah,
And that was the end of that. I mean,
yeah,
it's just that simple. And if you interact and you
yeah,
play with them, you said you saw for yourself with your own children
yeah,
that they turned into like little crazy people. So
yeah,
that's it,
yeah,
and you can try again at another time. And for those,
exactly.
you mentioned the children who are, oh, okay, take it away. That can happen in my house too, but only like after they've already had some, they've already been playing. It's like
Yeah,
having chocolates and sweets, right? If
right.
they had some yesterday, they're not going to care if you're like, okay,
Yeah,
and then today they're going to be like, okay, well, I had some yesterday, so it's
yeah, yeah.
whatever, whatevs, mom. So it's
Absolutely.
like, yeah, so it's like just keeping it real, and like, and I really think that parents should not feel parent shamed by what they're reading
Yeah,
in the media, by what they're seeing. Especially if you're looking on social media and you see all these perfect families doing these great things. Don't believe the hype, right? That was a song way back
yes.
when. Don't believe the hype.
Yeah,
Just take care of your own family. Think about the balance that you need. If you're, worried about your child sleeping and you're thinking there's an effect with devices, do one of the sleep logs, right? But
yeah,
with that sleep journal, keep track of the devices and what
yeah,
time did you turn it off? Was it 30 minutes before they went to sleep? Was it an hour? Do you need to go up to 2 hours? I mean,
yeah.
all of these things are things that you can, figure out yourself in a relatively short amount of time. And you can even
And
use an app to track it if you have to.
I am obsessed with this because I feel like what you said is essentially what I say to parents all the time when, their toddler or their preschooler, I think it usually happens around 2.5, 3, where kids are really wanting to define boundaries. They say,
Yeah,
"What is the boundary? What is the boundary?" And then they'll be like, no, they don't want to sleep or they're traumatized by sleep. And I always say, no, they just don't want to. And now you have to set the boundary. And this
yeah,
sounds like exactly what you're saying. Our kids aren't
it's
necessarily addicted. You just need to set a boundary. And
yeah.
I think
And
this is with all parenting stuff. We
it
need to
was
set
all
boundaries.
parenting stuff,
Yeah.
exactly. And I would even go even further and say it's not even the setting the boundary, it's the sticking with it. Because we've
Yeah.
all said, okay, that's it, you're off. And then, later on we have to do something. And then it's like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, it's just 15 minutes, but don't tell your father.
Yeah. That's, I mean,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, no,
welcome
I
to my
haven't done
life.
that. Yeah, I don't know that story at all. But
Yeah,
I mean, of course,
exactly.
I've done it too. But you're completely and right. It's about boundaries. And what cracks me up, a lot of times people contact me as a digital parenting coach to ask me, my 3-year-old, oh my gosh, they're crying, they're throwing a tantrum when I take the iPad away, and I'm like, yeah, yeah,
I would too.
um,
Yeah, if I was 3
um,
and you gave me
right.
this, amazing thing, I would also cry.
Right. Yeah. And I'm also like, this isn't really a digital parenting issue. This is just a parenting and boundaries issue.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, the digital issues are my child might be cyberbullied or I'm concerned
yeah,
about screen time. Those are different things
yep,
that I can really, give you the legal background, the evidence-based research.
yes.
But, tantrums, we know how those go.
Well, and I think this is a great place to end that, I remember there was a week, last year where I was like, "Guys, okay, no screens before bed. This article came out. Check this out." 2 days later, it's like, "Screen time does not matter." And I was like,
Right.
I don't know what to
Right.
do. So then in this case, I think what you're saying, and it's great advice, no guilt, no shame, do what feels right for your family, balance it out. If your kids are losing their mind, it's time to reevaluate.
Exactly, and probably the most important piece in all of this is play with them.
Yeah,
If you can, just a
yeah,
few minutes, just to
yes,
see what they're doing. They're going to be so excited that you're in their world, even
yeah,
though you might, might not want to be there. But get in there and play with them and find out what they're doing, and it will change the way you see it, and you will also be able to intervene
yeah.
if you see something a little cray cray. Because let's face it, there is a lot of cray cray out there. And that's a
I
legal
know,
term, by the
yeah.
way, cray cray.
Take it from the lawyer. Okay, Elizabeth, where can people find you?
Yes, absolutely. So, the best place I would say to find me and to hang out with me is in the digital parenting community on Facebook. And there I have other parents and grandparents and child online protection experts and cybersecurity people and even child psychologists all in there
Oh,
chipping out,
wow.
trying to just, yeah, get some information. And I would say, just as another place to find out more about what I do, is my website, which is digitalparentingcoach.com. And there you'll be able to see everything, including, the press, because I am based in France. And so I have the expert for France 24, the news station. So I go on and talk. It's a
Wow.
lot of fun. So you can see
Awesome.
all of those things on the website.
I love that. Thanks so much for joining
Yeah.
us. This
Oh,
was
wait,
super
I'll be
fun.
it's too much fun. Too much fun.
Yeah,
Go play with your
anytime.
kids. Go
Okay,
play some
done,
games now.
done. See you
Great.
later. Bye.